Today I'm going to review the Mungyo Artist Soft Oil Pastels. I love working with oil pastels and Mungyo is definitely one of the best out there. I'll show you how to make a realistic apple with these beautiful pastels in 20 minutes flat. Let's begin. Make a circle with a yellow color. Any yellow works fine. Then make a small area for the highlight. Now color the entire circle except that area which you have left for the highlight in that same yellow. For my choice, I choose a golden sort of yellow, or it could be a medium yellow in your case. So note, what I want to tell you is that you can use any oil pastels and the same techniques work pretty much really well. But Mungyo exceeds when it comes to layering. It's really better than all the other oil pastels out there. And now I'm just using flame red on top of this yellow. I'm leaving out some of the yellow on top because I want an interesting contrast between the yellow and the red. So I'm going to cover the entire bottom portion with this red now, flame red. In Camlin, you'll probably use a deep orange or any color between orange and red to start off with. Don't worry if anything goes out, if the color is slightly hodgepodge or it is just out of the circle. We all make these slight mistakes. Please never worry about these. Eventually, we will cover up all of these mistakes and this painting will come out a professional one. Now, I've just taken the darkest brown I could find. In this case, it's a raw umber. And I'm going to create the base layer for the shadows in the apple. I'm just using it underneath wherever there should be a shadow or a darker tone. Notice that I've left both sides of the shadow light because I'm going to make highlights there later. Now I'll just cover all of it with scarlet. The scarlet is a very dark red in Mungyo. So in case you're using some other oil pastels, please try and use a really dark red. Use the darkest red you have. And just cover up all of the red areas with that. Remember, don't worry if the color goes here and there. It's just going to blend in beautifully towards the end. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll start adding some yellow on top to make those layers deeper. So I'm choosing a slightly paler version of the yellow that I have in Mungyo. It's the first shade that I have in yellows in Mungyo. Now I'm dragging that yellow into the red. Notice how I'm doing that. So this is a sort of it gives a really interesting effect. It's a mixing technique and it gives you this effect where the red and yellow are slightly blending into each other. Now I'm using the golden yellow again. I'm using a lot of this yellow. I'll probably run out of it very soon. And I prefer mixing with my fingers because it gives me a greater degree of control. However, there is a flip side to this. If you mix with your fingers a lot, your fingers tend to get really rough. So try and keep a moisturizer handy after you've washed your fingers when you have mixed pastels with it. Make sure that you moisturize your fingers again because they'll get really rough. Mine did at least. And now I've mixed it and already it's looking really realistic. So on either side now where I wanted the highlights, I'm going to use the golden yellow and just make a very light line. So the color layer will be dark and you will just apply it in a small area. And again, I'm just blending it with the dark areas and creating this interesting, beautiful effect. Notice how the apple is already beginning to look so real. And it's all just the colors and the blending, nothing more. Any colors will work for this. So I would urge you to try. And now I'm just using the raw umber again to create that little smiley on top, because that's what you use for the stem. That's where the stem should come. I'm not going to make a stem today. I'm just using that area, and I'm just now using russet. That's the light brown here in the Mungyo set. Use a light brown, and I'm just blending it slightly with my fingers. Now I'm just adding highlights. I've taken the palest yellow I can find in my palette, and it's, in case of Mungyo, it's pale yellow, but in any of the pastels that you're using, just take whichever yellow is the closest to white. I'm dabbing it in a few areas on top, just to just to give that texture effect where some areas are lighter, some are slightly indented and therefore darker. And now you begin to notice that the apple is really, really looking realistic. And we will now add the highlights. Just take the medium yellow and start adding those small dots. There's a tiny dots. Make sure that the dots are not big. If they are big, then the realistic effect is really not going to be there. So you just ensure that you cover up the entire apple with these tiny yellow dots. I've used golden yellow because that is the yellow that matches the shade on top. So paler yellow probably wouldn't work in this case. And I'm just covering it all up with this yellow tiny dots. 7 minutes into our drawing, and we are already almost done creating a really wonderful realistic apple. This is the beauty of oil pastels. I love them, seriously. They are so good to use. And Mungyo is by far the best set I've ever used. I'll probably do a demo with a Sennelier next, and let's see how those go. I've heard they're not that great when it comes to layering because they don't layer that well. But then I'll definitely be comparing that particular property with the Mungyo colors and see which one comes out better on top. See? And now the finishing touches. We'll just use white, and in some areas I'll just put those small tiny dots yet again. I'm very, very careful with these dots because I want it to look real. So these are the final finishing touches we're going to make for this apple. Just layering in with those white dots, the final highlights. Yes, it's coming out really well. I'm happy. That's it, looks good. Now, yeah, I think I should start with the background now. So I'm just drawing this line to delineate the background and the surface on which this apple rests. So I've taken a lighter blue here, and you can use cobalt or ultramarine if you like it. I like ultramarine a lot, so it's usually the most frequently used color in my palette when it comes to sky or clouds or things like that. I'm just filling it up, all the entire background around the apple with this color. This is the first layer of my background. Just one color, one layer. Little bit of patience with oil pastels and you can create masterpieces so easily. I love how buttery and smooth the Mungyo colors are. and how thick the pigment goes on the paper, because that is what will give the most realistic effect after you blend it in. Now, I'll go for the Prussian blue and create the darkness in on the left side. So when you create a darker shade, the object pops out. It looks like a 3D object. So that's the purpose of using Prussian blue there. Now I'm going to use a lighter blue on one side. This just to create a beautiful contrast, nothing more. And your background will start having all these unique different shades. Now I'm using gray on top. So you can actually play around with this a lot and use whatever colors you want. Maybe even create a green background with interesting yellows and light greens and dark greens. I'm sure that will come out really nice. So now I'm going to work on the surface on which this apple is resting, and I'm taking russet and quickly delineating the outline of the apple. Notice that the small error that was there, the color that has seeped out of the apple, is no longer there. That's how easy it is to correct any mistake you make when you're painting. I never worry about any mistakes, I just paint them over. So now I'm just delineating the apple, the shape of the apple with the russet brown, and I'm going to make a small table out here with this russet brown. So if you have Camlin or Doms or Faber-Castell or anything like that, you can just use burnt sienna. Burnt sienna works nice. So in some other brands, what I notice is that the layering really doesn't happen that well, because some pigments, some colors rather, are really hard and some are buttery smooth. So it's very difficult if you're trying to layer a hard color onto a buttery smooth surface, which problem doesn't happen at all in case of Mungyo. All the colors are buttery soft in this one, at least in the 48 set that I have. And now I'll just take yellow. Oh, I think medium yellow looks much better because, oh, it's going to be my most used yellow, like I predicted. Yeah, look at that interesting mixed effect that it gave. Wow. Now I'll just use black. Yep. So I'll make the shadow now for the apple. I'll make a roundish shape. I'm using black for it directly. So the darker the background, the more the object seems to pop out. I'm leaving out the highlighted areas on the apple so that it looks more realistic, and then just coloring in the black. The shape isn't quite right yet, but I'm not worried about it because when I'm mixing, I'll take care of it. So no worries. Yes, so I've just created the shape of the shadow, and notice that there is this interesting contrast between the yellow on the table and the black which is right under the apple, and it's looking really nice in this case. See that? So now I'm mixing, and I'll just mix the entire yellow and the brown together to create this interesting smooth effect. Now I'll just mix the shadow. I'm not even worried about how the shadow is going to be, what the shape is going to be, because it's anyway going to come out really nice. And now I'll just mix it up a little bit more and we should be done. Now I'm going to trace the edges of the apple, make sure that it's the perfect round shape which we're looking for. And I continue mixing. I just make sure that if I mix a dark color with one finger, I use another finger for the lighter colors, because the dark tends to get on top of the lighter colors. That's how strong these pigments are. And I'm tracing the edge of the apple with my finger, and Then I'll just proceed to mix it all up. The background will be separate, and here I don't think you're able to see the difference between the blue and the black, but in the final picture it will be quite evident. So I'm just mixing again. And in the background, I'm not really bothered too much about mixing the light onto the dark. So I'm just mixing it anyway. It's going to create some interesting effects in the background. There are many different ways. You could also make small spheres of different colors in the background and mix those. It'll look like an interesting background that way. And I think we're almost towards the end of creating this beautiful hyper-realistic, no, not really hyper-realistic, no, I'm not there yet, but yes, decently realistic apple, which I really like looking at. And I'm pretty sure now that you know the techniques, it will be super fun for you to recreate this too. Do leave your comments and suggestions for more subjects in the comments. Do like and subscribe my video. No, my channel, sorry. Do like and subscribe to my channel. Please like my video, and if you really liked it, please share this video so that everybody can enjoy creating beautiful paintings in a matter of minutes. I think it's something everybody should get to enjoy because it's so much fun. And look at that. Now there's just one final piece which I need to finish, and we are done. So I'm tracing out the edges, mixing it up with an earbud and using my fingers to gain control. Yes, and almost done. Almost done, yeah. Now I'll just take black and make that smiley a little bit more defined because it's looking a little pale. And then I'll take the earbud and drag the black into the indented areas which I had left without highlights in the apple. So that will create that shadow effect. And that's it. I've blended it up. And we are done. Enjoy. I'm really happy with how this has come out. If you really like this video, please do share it. And please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Here are some beautiful masterpieces my students created after I gave them this demo.